headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Let me ask you, as a Conservative Chancellor, delivering a spring statement in which you announced a future tax cut, first one in 16 years, the basic rate of income tax to be cut by 1 percentage point from 20% down to 19%. Are you disappointed with the front page headlines, which most of them barely mention that? All the papers today have gone with the biggest fall in living standards on record. It doesn't look like your promise of a tax cut has gone down very well.
Well, I'm actually focused on just making a real difference to people, and I know that people right now are struggling with rising costs across the board, and I wanted to make sure that the tax plan we announced yesterday would support them, and I believe it does that. It delivers the biggest net tax cut for personal taxes in a quarter of a century. 3 bits to it. The fuel duty was cut yesterday at 6 p.m. By the biggest amount we've ever cut it, 5 pence per litre. Secondly, we're increasing national insurance thresholds from July, which will deliver a tax cut to 30 million workers, ensuring a typical worker gets a £330 tax cut this year. And thirdly, we will, as you said, for the first time in 16 years, cut income tax, ensuring people can keep more of what they earn. But I think more broadly, everyone knows there's uncertainty ahead, and hopefully people appreciate that it's difficult for me to solve everything, and I wish I could, but I can't fully protect people against the challenges ahead. But where I can make a difference, I will, and our plan will put billions of pounds back in the pockets of hard-working British families. Well,
interestingly, you actually echo the words of the Institute of Fiscal Studies, Paul Johnson, a man I'm sure you know well, who said, yeah, you can't fully protect people. But even we look at the 5p off fuel duty, 5p a litre off fuel duty, fuel duty went up by 5 pence in the last week. Sorry, fuel prices went up by 5p in the last week alone. 52% of what we pay at the pumps is fuel duty and VAT. You could do a lot more. Many other countries around Europe, including Ireland and France, have gone a lot further than that. Why didn't you go further to help people? Because it's not doesn't just help motorists, does it? It helps the price of everything that we buy in the shops.
Yeah, you mentioned some other countries, Julia. To look at France, both France and Ireland have done a fuel duty cut that lasts a lot shorter than ours. Ours lasts about 2.5 times longer. Theirs runs out in the summer. Ours runs for 12 months all the way to next year. So in that sense, it's much more longer help than those places. Also, everyone's a bit different, so I'd be careful of drawing these comparisons. France's fuel duty rate is higher than ours to start with. And Ireland has a 2 or 23% VAT rate compared to our 20%. And both of them have not had a track record of freezing fuel duty the way we have for the last 10 years. And I think that's the last thing I'd say. Look, I'll be the first to recognise, does it fully offset the full movement in oil prices that we're seeing? Of course it doesn't. And, I can't do that. But it was something that lots of people, consumer groups, motoring groups call for, because the price of filling up our cars is something that the vast majority of us have to deal with. And people wanted there to be a bit of help there. And I'm sure if I hadn't done it, and I'd be on your show, you'd be saying, and I said, well, even if I did it, it wouldn't make any difference. You'd say, well, you could have done something to show that you care and you're on people's side. So,
this is the trouble. I think we all have to admit you are between a rock and a hard place, because there is no money. There's lots about saving for a rainy day. It's poured with rain for the last 2 years, and now we're facing a bigger storm, and you're being asked to make everything better. And I accept, I'm a realist, that you can't make everything better. You've also got the pressure of the fact that you come from a political philosophy of being a small government Tory, a low tax Tory, and you want to please Tory voters and Tory MPs as well. And let's not pretend that these statements don't have a political element there. But there is a concern that everyone's going to be hit hard. But the poorest are going to be hit hardest. It is the poorest who spend the biggest percentage of their income on heating their homes, on fuel, on food. Those are the things that are going up the most. Their inflation rate is far higher than those on better incomes. The poorest in society didn't get a mention in your spring statement yesterday. There was no help for them at all. Why not?
I really don't think that's true to say, actually, and it's because people on the lowest incomes have been my priority over the past couple of years that we acted first to help them. We did that in the autumn, and that was improving the generosity of how universal credit works. That delivered a £2 billion tax cut to around 2 million people. It ensured that, for example, a single mother with 2 kids who's renting, working full-time on the national living wage, as a result of all the policies then and now that we've announced, will be about £1,600 a year better off. So I really don't think it's right to say we're not helping those people. And yesterday we announced an extra extra £500 million of support for something called the Household Support Fund. And what that will do is give that money to local councils who are best placed to ensure that extra support gets to those who really need it through the challenging months ahead. So they were mentioned and they did get help. And this all comes on top of, by the way, the £9 billion package of support we announced for energy bills last month. That will come into effect in April as the energy price cap goes up. And that's going to go up on average about £700 a year. And we announced support worth about half of that, £350. And the first £150 of that, those people will see as a rebate on their council tax bills this April, in a few weeks' time. So, they are uppermost in my mind, and we've done lots of things that will help them.
What do you make of the criticism that some are making, and we've had quite a few tweets and texts along these lines this morning, Chancellor, saying, look, you were born wealthy, you worked in the city, you've married the daughter of a billionaire. You've got no understanding of people who are genuinely saying we're going to have to get a few quid together to put it in the meter to keep the electricity and the heating on. You've never had to sort of budget to, do we have enough money for loo roll this week? I mean, that is how a lot of people live their lives every single day, and it's going to get worse for them. What do you say to people who say that someone who is rich can't possibly understand how poorest people in society live? What would you say to that?
I'd be the first to say that, look, I'm sitting here talking to you, and because I'm the product of an enormous amount of sacrifice and kindness on the part of lots of people, starting with my grandparents who emigrated here, my parents, and lots of people have helped me along the way. And the reason I do this job and work, night and day at it is to make sure I can try and spread that as much of that same opportunity to as many people as possible. That's actually what motivates me to do this. And I just say people can judge me by my actions. All the things that you said were true, and yet I don't think anyone brought them up during the pandemic when I was introducing furlough and supporting the country to get through what was an extraordinarily difficult time. No one said then, well, what about all these things? How are you able to understand what it means to put a furlough scheme in place? So, I say, look, judge me by my actions, and the record shows that we have continued to stand by the British people over the past 2 years. We did that during the pandemic. We did it last month with energy bills, and we did it again yesterday. And that's what I'll continue to do. OK, I must ask also about Ukraine. Are we judging the West by their actions? We spoke to Ukrainian MP Inna Sovsun on the show a little bit earlier, and she talked about a woman who took her child, a neighbour's child, her niece, and a child she found in the street in Mariupol after sitting by the bodies of her two dead parents. She says there are hundreds of children like this in Mariupol, and not helping them is as much a war crime as what Vladimir Putin is doing. Do we need to do more than we're already doing to help the people of Ukraine? Well, the Prime Minister obviously is meeting with other global leaders today to discuss the situation in Ukraine, and it's obviously shocking, and Putin's aggression, it needs to be met with a significant response. I hope people in this country are proud of the part that we are playing in doing that. We are providing military support to Ukraine to help them defend themselves, and clearly that is working. We're providing humanitarian support, £400 million so far, which makes us, I think, one of the more significant contributors. Obviously, many people are opening up their own homes to welcome refugees here, and we are, together with our allies, imposing incredibly severe sanctions on Russia, the likes of which we've never seen, and that is having significant impact. You've seen the Russian ruble plummet to record lows. The stock exchange there has been shut for the best part of a month, and the Russian central bank has had to double interest rates to 20%. So people should feel good that the actions we're taking are making a difference. But obviously, the leaders today will be discussing what more needs to be done. Okay.
Just good talk. Hot talk. Bold talk. Talk radio. Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV. The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.